Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is John Marshall. Hi, John.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am wonderful. Very happy to be here with you.
Yes, I'm happy to have you. And before I introduce you, I would like to give a big shout out to Christy Clayton, because that's where we met. We met at her event in Houston. And you know Christy, I know Christy. I've done 2 episodes with Christy, and we're going to put this in the show notes. But definitely listen to that episode. Christy is awesome and a great connector, and I'm glad we got connected through her.
Yeah, I totally agree. Shout out to Herverse Summit. What a great event to go to.
Yes. Okay, so now let me introduce you. So John, you are the founder and CEO of Series Next Solutions, and you live the small business entrepreneur life right along your clients. And you are a leading expert in building a finance seat for 2 million to 15 million in revenue companies who need to move on a path from having only a bookkeeper to having a true CFO. So Series Next was formed in 2020 based on your prior experience as a full-time member of a scaling startup leadership team where you build its finance, business intelligence, and operation functions. So you're definitely an operation guy, and we're going to talk about that. You understand the importance of processes and well-documented processes and systems.
Absolutely.
And when you were working at a startup, you were preparing for sale. So you were born and raised in New Orleans, which is amazing, a great city, though you spent time in several larger cities before setting back home in 2009. When you're not at work, you keep up with your family of 6 at home and beyond. And I definitely met your wife. She's wonderful. You were both there, and great family. Overall, success across, in terms of business and family and all of that, which is great. I mean, it's like definitely that's the way to live the entrepreneur life, is having this wholesome different areas of life doing well. So well
That's
done
right.
on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So let's talk. I'm sure it is. Okay, so let's talk about SNS, which is Series Next Solution. You started it in 2020 after you were working with the startup company. What are some of the lessons you learned from working with the startup company and preparing it for sale?
First of all, I'm almost going to walk through chronologically. The importance of finding ways to automate things that are repeatable or even semi-automate. If you can't fully automate something, there's real magic in getting a process from something that takes somebody a day to something that takes somebody 20 minutes. We don't have to go through all the math to like, wow, if you do that once a week for 52 weeks a year, what that gets you back as you scale. But thinking through a lot about how to use information to do things, because I have a background kind of before I had done that, I was in business intelligence and kind of learning about databases and analysis and that whole world of using low code or even no code tools to do things. So that's a big part of it as you're just trying to jump on and scale. But 2 is if you're really trying to move a business towards an end, whether it's a sale or growing to a certain point, the importance of having something to help you on a forward-looking basis that's consistent with what you're looking at when you look backwards. So by that, I mean, like, let's get accurate books and records for the business so that we can answer some key questions, and then start being able to plan our future in a way that makes sense to everyone. So not
Right.
just, oh, we're going to grow 18% and get to this many dollars, but how many customers does that mean? Or how many widgets are you going to sell? And can one salesperson handle that or two? So that we can look at things and say, wow, if we want to get to this point in a year, we're going to end up having to hire this many people. We have the confidence to do it because we can see that our company has the cash, even if we don't sell as much as we think we will, to be able to handle it. Things like that really help shorten the cycle for the business
Right.
of deciding, gathering feedback, and then making another better decision along the
For
way.
sure. I think
Yeah.
it's very smart, but it's all a matter also of resources because we can come up with different ideas on how to automate, how to make things more efficient, but the amount of resource, if we have limited resources, how do you use data or how do you analyze where to start and what's worth doing and what's not?
Mm, Probably a combination of how um, how heavy the lift is to get something done, and what the benefit could be.
Right.
That is a really hard road to go down. So, because like how easy is something depends on the skills that you have or the skills that you're able to hire.
Right.
And so there's a learning curve there. For me, when I was, and this is going back over a decade, I learned how to do most of the stuff, getting from Excel to working in a tool called Power Query, which if you're an Excel person who wants to automate things, my goodness, learn that. Um, to be able to talk to APIs and get information out of systems and find the patterns to get things moving, put things into databases, but also how to go out and if you can describe what you want, finding somebody who can help build it for you who isn't on your staff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there are there are tools out there that if if used properly can really help you. And I'm thinking things like not just DIY tools like Zapier or Make.com, or Logic apps within Microsoft, but also places where you can hire people. Upwork is the one that I've had success using. But
For
you really
automating.
right, right. So, for example, Series Next, when we had nothing to do in our first year, just trying to figure it out, I was able to hire a developer to build a little piece of software to pull all of our time that we book out of QuickBooks time, which was our T sheets at the time that we would keep time in, get it into a database, get it out reported to us so we could see. I mean, I could tell you how much money we made that day, which I don't recommend tracking for what it's worth. But
Why not?
um, at a daily level, let's do the things that lead to the financial outcomes, not
Okay.
not watch the
So
financial
let's talk about
outcomes.
that. When you work with your clients, what do you recommend to them in terms of implementing financial systems so they can actually make the right decisions? Because that is a good point. You
Hmm.
can get too much into the weeds that you get a lot of information, but you can't really make a decision. I mean, when I look at data, when my staff give me data or clients give me data, I always ask myself, what decisions or what actions can I do based on the data? And if it's irrelevant and it's just data for the sake of data, it's not worth it. So
That's right.
yeah, so give us some examples of what do you recommend to your clients in terms of accumulating data, using data to make decisions?
Sure. So there's different pieces to collect at different levels, I think. So when we talk about, for example, in our fractional finance and accounting world, everybody we work with, we're going to give you a forward-looking projection, a financial model in finance terms. And we want you to predict outcomes at a unit level every 3 months against it so that you can keep having a good forecast of where you're going, understand what to do. Those are high level numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like total units sold. If you're looking at, let's say, how do I evaluate how sales is doing? Now you're into something a little bit more detailed, like a scorecard, and you want to go a little bit more leading. Um, We like the idea of scorecards, bought in if you're in the EOS world or you're in really any other, business operating system, they're into that too. Um, I tend to recommend to people that, five numbers is plenty to tell somebody what to do in the world. Um, and that we want to come up with numbers that are simple, actionable, and relevant. So simple meaning they're easy to understand. And I had to learn that the hard way as I grew because I can come up with a super awesome number that tells you exactly how you're doing. But if every time that number is looked at, the very first question is, wait, how do we calculate this again? It's not helpful. Um, so actionable being, I think, what you're getting to, right? I don't need to know how many widgets I sold last month. I need to be thinking about, what do I need to do today? And so
Well,
an
it
example
helps
of
to
that,
know how much you sold last month because you do want to keep the measurements in terms of looking back and historical data because that's also how you predict and forecast the future.
right? But that's a different look. So if you're looking day to day, our recommendation is always around like let's find the leading indicators of the activities. So group I was with before they were in staffing and they were having to recruit staff and place staff, but there's a time gap between when you're getting applications and when you can put somebody in. And so having a regional head who had a number in their hands every day that said, based on your target for placements 2 months from now, you need this many applications per day coming in right now.
Mm-hmm.
That is a daily actionable number that can tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
The opposite side is, are we looking at the results as they've come in to confirm and close that loop
Mm-hmm.
and really build that confidence of if I focus on these two things, then I get the ultimate result because the ultimate result does have to be financial if you're in a for-profit business. Really,
Right.
even if you're not, because you have to manage your funding. Um, so does that make sense in terms of how it kind of runs on a chain?
Oh, for sure. Can you give us an example of a company you were working with and how did you integrate? Like, what did you integrate and how did you integrate those numbers?
Oh, goodness. Um, sure. On the spot. Well, that was an example right there. Just starting with, somebody who's in recruiting and staffing. You have a couple different sides of things you need to be doing. You need to be getting people for later, but you need to be placing people now. And
Right.
essentially getting people down to two numbers was the daily unit that somebody could look at. And, in the end, we're also tracking um, a total for the month at a unit level. When we start doing that, now we're looking towards the financials at a monthly level. Okay, well, what is our average, dollar per hour that we're bringing in?
Mm-hmm.
What are our average placements per person? Because a more engaged person is gonna have to be a more profitable person. Really,
Right.
it's
That's
it's
nice.
nice that those two go together because frankly, it's more fun to have people. We think about it at Series Next with our CFOs. Somebody who only wants to join us as a contractor on one client isn't going to necessarily be as engaged inherently with our core values, our culture, our SNS financial pulse process as, somebody who wants to be, above four, kind of as a minimum, or even come aboard as a full, employee of the company.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you have the engagement. Absolutely. So when you start working with a client, what are some of the first steps what are the initial steps that you take with them when they start working with you?
Ooh, onboarding's hard. Um, in our world, so we have a 90-day expectation that we try to set for onboarding because we are a full suite finance and accounting department for your company. And, we speaking of, systematizing a business, everybody gets a CFO, a financial analyst, and an accountant, and they've all got a job to do. And we end up spending a lot of time pulling together a company's books and records and making sure things are consistent and the financial statements can answer the right questions. Because usually when we come in, we're the first ones. And we've got a little bit of cleanup to do, usually, a lot sometimes. Um, we'll have some things philosophically we want to work around. And then we also have to be having conversations with the client about it because, we're looking for that right fit where somebody wants to learn a bit from us, but we need to learn from them, about their business and what really makes sense. So there's a big communications piece, but we're coming in and we're going, all right, well, we're going to start, um, on the backwards looking piece because that is the foundation. If you think about finance and accounting like a pyramid, the bottom is like I have books, and the second piece is I could show months with accuracy and consistency. So we're building up that before we can start doing analysis. And so we're doing, a chart of accounts review, and we might move some things around. We want to make sure things are right. We're going to look at if we need to put a policy in place to measure something specific every month that they want. And then we've got to put a process in around that where we can automate it as much as possible. We're gonna enter a close process every month for the client. So we have a checklist to build. We've got to learn what needs to be done. All of that from a CEO's perspective is like background stuff, right? That doesn't immediately.
That's right. I mean, but those are the
help
things you have to
better
do.
decisions.
So from the
Yeah.
CEO perspective, how do you align that to the CEO perspective?
We have our CFO start on day one with our customers once we're in their systems on helping them start planning their revenue because that's half the battle. And so we start those conversations right away. Something we've had to learn over the years, frankly, of how to, do, because when we first started this thing in our first couple of years, people would be like, why am I not getting anything? After a month or so, we'd be like, well, we're working so hard. But working hard doesn't necessarily give results. And so we start working right away now with the clients, with the CFO and the analysts, really talking about like, let's get your goals clearly defined of what you want from the company, which isn't always necessarily financial. Or if it is, it's not, I want to make the most money possible. In fact, with most small business owners, it's something more like, I want to make enough money for my employees to be able to make this much more. Well, people tend to start with big hearts on it, which is nice and part of why it's a mission. But when we start working on those conversations and start charting that path with them and getting them a little bit clearer on it, that's when things get a little bit better. And that's, we call that iterate for results is one of our core values. We'll go work on this piece and have a couple placeholders, and we'll circle back around when we get this other side done and make it a little clearer, a little more accurate.
That makes sense. Good. Well, John, if our listeners would like to get a hold of you or find out more about you, how can they do that?
Well, our website's the easiest, seriesnextsolutions.com. There are plenty of green buttons you can click that say, get in touch. And those actually come straight to me still. So that's probably the easiest way. People are also welcome to email me at john.marshall@seriesnextsolutions.com. If you're interested in typing out a really long email address, that option is for you. Or LinkedIn, always looking to connect with people on LinkedIn. And then finally, coming soon, I'm going to launch a podcast of my own, probably sometime around the end of Q1. So I don't know if that's going to be before or after people have this.
But this is an evergreen episode, so they're probably wondering like Q1 2028, 2029.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well,
you should just look for John Marshall for his podcast, so that'll be amazing.
Own the P&L is what it will be called for fractional COOs and full-time COOs
Own the P&L.
who don't have a ton
I love
of finance
it.
experience and want to help, gain skills and confidence in how to look at your company financially.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, good job on that, John. And thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast.
Adi, thank you so much. It's always nice to see you. I know we will catch each other on the circuit.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.